Ever wish your child was a full-blown liberal idiot, desperate to turn them into a Jew-hating extremist who'd rather burn a flag than think for themselves? Well, Harvard University has the answer. For the low, low price of $500,000, we'll transform your kid into the kind of zealot who sets bags of shit on fire in the street, screaming about whatever CNN's whining about today. Our elite program guarantees they'll swap reason for rage and facts for feelings, faster than you can say protest permit. But wait, there's more. Our tuition doesn't cover the essentials. Blue hair dye, nose piercings, and a weak, flaccid body are sold separately. And don't forget parents, you'll be footing the bill for these. Plus financially supporting your adult child for the rest of their life because they'll never become productive members of society. Why work when you can protest?
Results not guaranteed. Side effects include chronic virtue signaling, allergic reactions to logic, and an obsession with trending hashtags. Harvard University is not liable for arrests, property damage, or your kid's newfound hatred of you. Consult your bank account before enrolling.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, the analysis of the war in Iran. Jacob Olidort and Captain Meaghan Mobbs, PhD, join us. Illegals in Texas are suing for education. Emily Sturge from Campus Reform. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, Al Berry and the Babylon Bee. And Brandon Lake and Cece Winans in the Spotlight. And now from Times Square, where the rats run the streets, the media runs in circles, and that Kevin runs headfirst into the madness with a bucket of facts and a flamethrower. Here's Kevin!
All right, welcome in, friends. Good weekend to you. Kevin McCullough, glad to be here. I was just kidding. I was actually all prepared for the show. We've got a lot to get to on this edition because, as you know, the war is not tampering down. If anything, over the last week, it has just gotten more intense. And now the big question is being raised by everybody. What will Trump do should Trump, in fact, commit to those airstrikes that it seems Israel wants him to launch, and it seems that the American people might be with him. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But we've got a great lineup, great sketch comedy today. We've got a new cartoon by Al Berry. He's been just coming up with great stuff lately. And a very unique presentation from the Babylon Bee before we're done. And I'm very excited about this. Brandon Lake, who's already made at least 2 appearances in the spotlight this year with new music, has more new music for us today. He's got a solo, and he's got a killer duet with Cece Winans that we'll end the show with in hour 2. So we got so much good stuff for you. How can you not be here with us? I also just want to point out, if you've been over to thatkevinshow.com recently, you may have noticed we did some house cleaning. There's some changes. There's some new stuff there, including a link to that little thing called That Passport Life, which is our new travel magazine. And if you've not subscribed, it's free. But we are taking you on destinations and journeys all around the globe, the most beautiful, the most enhanced, the most imaginative, just luxurious places that you can go. So if you need like a 2-minute vacation, go to That Passport Life and just visit one of our locations. We've been to Tulum, we've been to Lisbon, we've been to a bunch of really cool places in recent weeks. And then you can get it, you can sign up Subscribe, get the thing in your inbox each Saturday, and then on a weekend you just take a little mini vacation, no matter where you want to go. Also, if you're not getting the Video Insider newsletter that we offer, you got to get that too, and you can sign up at That Kevin Show as well. But the Video Insider gives you like little clips and highlights, behind the scenes, all kinds of cool stuff of not just my show, but also all of the top shows across Salem News Channel. So I would really love to see you become a member of That Kevin Show's extended family and stay with us all week long. And get that Video Insider email. Comes to you custom, and it's a packed little kit full of fun every day when it hits my inbox, because there's video clips from each of the shows, a lot of stuff I haven't had the chance to see, and in nugget form I can catch up on it really quick. So it's really cool. All right, I want to get to the main story this weekend. Will the president take the initiative, drop the 30,000-pound bunker buster, of which the U.S. is the only possessor of on planet Earth? There's a lot to consider, because Israel has done everything it can to date, and they're still working on it, to try to take out Fordo, which is the deep underground place where the Iranian nuclear program is really housed. And it is deep, and it is well concealed, and it is so far down in there that it does not look like normal munitions have had much impact on it. So the question becomes, will we drop the heaviest, largest, most powerful traditional ordnance in warfare history, our largest bunker buster? Will we drop that in there to take that thing out? Now, the pros and cons on this are pretty self-evident. If you do it, it's done. So the nuclear program is over. They don't have any nuclear program left at that point if it's successful. And I think we have a few of these. So if we have to drop more than one to make sure that we got it done, we could do that. But as soon as we do it, the whole world's going to know we did it. And they're going to know that we ended Iranian dominance of, the bullying in the region, all the nuke stuff. The other thing that is interesting in recent days is that the Chinese have been flying flights into Iran, where they say on their manifest, we're going to Luxembourg, and they're flying across, and when they get to Iran, instead of going on to Luxembourg, they land. They turn off their transponder. Nobody knows where they go. I'm pretty sure we have satellite images that could track where they went. As the U.S., I'm pretty sure we have that technology. But common understanding of what's going on in the airs is not readily known, because they turn off their transponder. And when that transponder turns off, they're landing big 737s inside of Iran. I don't know what it's about. Nobody does. But that's been happening this last week. So the real question is, what happens if the president decides to drop this bomb? Now, two things I think are really clear. One, he's made it clear he does not want to be involved in any ground war. There's nothing about a ground war that Donald Trump is attracted to. There's no regime change. There's none of that going down, because this guy does not have tolerance for that at all. In fact, he was highly critical of the Bush regime. He was highly critical of the Obama and Clinton administrations for the stuff that they did, where you put boots on the ground and then you get Americans killed. You don't need to get Americans killed. And when Biden got 15 Americans killed on the exit from Afghanistan, President Trump was livid. Why do we have to lose Americans to protect American interest? He doesn't think that we always do, and so he takes the minimal risk possible. And I think that's part of the reason why you might see this number popping up. Currently, CNN is polling the country. And what they are finding out is that 79% of the American people are with him on the issue of Iran and a nuke. That 79% of Democrats, 83% of Republicans, and 79% of independents all believe that Iran has a nuke and that they should not be allowed to have a nuke. This is stunning in terms of the unanimity it gives the president to take actions with, because if the country truly feels this way, and this is not a slight majority, it's an overwhelming majority, then you have the goodwill of the American people supporting you. And you even have a plurality of voters that are saying they want to see a targeted and strategic airstrike. Targeted, meaning very limited in its scope, mission. You return home, you do what you plan to do, and then you get the heck out of there. That's what the American people are giving the president the blank check to do, if it means stopping Iran from getting its nuclear weapon. That, my friend, is rather astounding. Kevin McCullough coming back from New York. Huge show with the latest from Iran with Jacob Olidort when we continue here on That Kevin Show.
Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related. Well, it's been a very crazy few days, and as you see the headlines continuing to portray the story in more robust fashion, it's not going anywhere. And that's with significant changes being done. Israel has impacted Iran's capabilities in so many different ways, and yet Iran still wants to launch missiles and create trouble and try to create strife for Israel. And I asked this question on my show this week. It's very simple. What does Iran have to gain by, even if they had a bomb and eliminated Israel off the map, what would that strategically give them? They're not neighbors. Is it just a complete upper hand in the region? Is it finally being able to say to the Saudis, now you will be subservient to us? I don't really understand the deeper layers of the psychology that's at work here, but maybe my next guest does. Jacob Olidort is with the America First Policy Institute. He handles all things national security, and particularly things in the Middle East we've talked about in the past. Jacob, it's good to see you again. I know that because secularists don't want to do this. They don't want to look at scripture or text or history from scriptural narratives and go back and say that there's this long-standing beef between Ishmael and Isaac, and they don't want to do any of that. So now we have to talk about things in the mainstream as being very geopolitical and having very strategic interests and everything. My only concern is I don't think that a lot of the efforts that are at play in this particular conflict have ever been geopolitical in the here and now. I always kind of think that there is some other thing that is being desired. Do we know what the other thing is?
Great to be with you, Kevin. Well, and certainly my reference would have probably been David Goliath, but Ishmael Isaac is pretty close too. I think here, so as you alluded to at the top, this is one of the founding principles of the Iranian regime's, emergence on the stage 50 years ago now of annihilation of Israel. But what that does in the here and now today, actually, God forbid if that advances any closer to that objective and why they're persisting, the only explanation right now is desperation, that would breathe new life into their collapsed empire right now in the Middle East. They have nobody. You see Hezbollah sitting this one out. They've got nobody in Syria. In fact, the Syrian leader there announced the opening of their skies to Israeli planes. Not that Israel needed that announcement. They could have done it anyway. The Houthis, I guess. So I think that is what Iran is hoping for, that could give them new momentum, a new lease on life, and maybe even more more credibility with their sponsors in Moscow and Beijing. And that's not to be understated. I mean, the Chinese are, by some estimates, they are solely responsible for the buildup of Iran's missile arsenal. So that is part of what Israel is doing here to preempt that threat from evolving further. But I think there is an immediate play.
Let's break some of that down. There's so much that's fascinating in this dealing of the cards in this recent series of events. You mentioned the Houthis, you mentioned Hezbollah. Hamas has its own issues in Gaza right now, but what you're seeing is basically three proxy groups that are not, you pointed out, are not, kind of coming to the aid of their friends in Iran. But here's the thing. Iran has been the backer of those three groups. They've basically been the funding for Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis. And the way I see what's happened here is that Netanyahu on one end and Trump on the other have kind of cut off both heads of the two-headed snake. And one is the nuclear capacity to threaten and bully and keep everybody in fear in the region. And the other is the pallets of cash and the production of oil that keep them just humming along in terms of a financial well-being. You've had both of those capacities be now more or less eliminated, one through Trump policy on sanctions, the other through Israel's actions militarily, and I believe very, very pinpoint strike. I mean, look, most people, when they pick to choose military action, they're not nearly as precise and as surgical as Israel is on anything, but they have been exceedingly careful in this conflict so far to not have needless civilian damage. And I think I think it's great. I think it's great that Netanyahu continues to talk to the Iranian people and say, this is not about you. This is about these crazy killers that are, running your country. But at the end of the day, if they don't have money and they don't have the leverage of the nukes, they are going to now have to face a very put out citizenry that is going to say, where's our money, and how do we survive from this point on? How do the mullahs survive with a population that's going to turn on them? And I think probably sooner than later.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's really unclear what the exact mentality of the mullahs is at this moment. I mean, it's really astounding.
I think they're hiding for their lives and all this.
Well, I think so, yes. That would be the smart thing to do now. But I think going back to your point about, and there's a lot of talk right now about what is the U.S. role here, directly, indirectly, and so forth. I mean, as I see it, the U.S. and Israel are working in parallel, doing different things. And, America first, as the Prime Minister of Israel said over the weekend in interviews, look, the President of the United States has to act on behalf of the American people. Only he can determine what that is, what that threshold is. Meanwhile, we do what we have to do. But, all of that, of course, converges on can turn on one question, whether an American citizen is even scratched by anybody connected to the Iranian regime. We saw in 2020 when an American contractor was in the wrong place at the wrong time in Iraq, that led the president to kill Iran's number one general, Soleimani. So the point I'm making, I guess, is, Israel is being so specific on what it's targeting. The Iranians, the regime, what I don't get is these missile barrages. I mean, if any of that hits a citizen, a service member, that could change the whole equation even further. I mean,
well, what we're seeing, in a very stark way, is that the Iron Dome is actually quite effective.
Yes.
So the fact that Israel has more or less, I mean, there are like 100 deaths, I think, so far in Israel, but that's that is not going to be a huge, massive scale, war loss that they could have had. I mean, you have it much worse if Iran's dropping nukes on Israel. It's a lot different than what they're dealing with here, and it was kind of twofold. It was that they had nuclear capacity, and it was that they were just this close to having an intercontinental ballistic missile, which would have reached anywhere in Europe or the East Coast of the U.S. So, I mean, I think it was beyond time for Israel to say, we've got to put this in check. But they did it, and I think the globe needs to be thankful for that. When we come back from this first break, I want to ask you about a couple of things, because the Saudi equation, I think, is very significant. You mentioned the leadership in Syria, which is more related, I think, to the Sunni Arab contingency than the Shias in Iraq. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that they're more Sunni-minded than Shia. Can Saudi keep a hold of kind of a coalition of Arab states that does not retaliate to Israel, because I don't think Israel is really doing anything in Iran that Saudi objects to. And lastly, how does any of this impact long-term, from your view, of the Abraham Accords and the progress that we're making in the region? Because those are two big issues that I think need to be at least addressed so that we have some sort of confidence in where things are headed. Jacob Olidort is my guest.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. It's the biggest story, and it's not one that people predicted. When Trump was getting elected, he said he was going to bring, he's going to do everything he could to stop the Ukraine and Russia war and end Israel and Gaza. Neither of those are done yet, and here Israel has opened up another front in what I am contending is really just a continuation of the same war. I don't think that Hamas declared war on Israel on October 7th. I think Iran did. I don't think that Hezbollah launched a north border attack against Israel shortly after the Hamas invasion. I think Iran did. I don't think the Houthis were attacking the U.S. service troops in the Gulf. I think Iran was doing it. This is all Iran. It's all these groups are just Iranians by a different name in resourcing and in mentality. But here's the thing. Where does it go from here? Jacob Olidort rejoins us from the America First Policy Institute. And Jacob, as we're dealing with this, I mentioned before the last break that there's a couple of big pieces here. And one is the Saudis. The Saudis have come a long way. They seem very open to joining the Abraham Accords. They haven't officially done that yet. But I mean, there's this kind of sense that they are with Trump and with the region in terms of having a more open, bigger economic relationship with everybody, including Israel in the region. And we know that the Saudis hate the Iranians more than the Iranians hate the Israelis. So how do the Saudis figure into this mix?
No, it's a great question. Great to be back with you, Kevin. Look, the Saudis obviously are integral to all of what's happening in the region. And it's important to note as well for your listeners and viewers that, in the Middle East, what different governments say is not as important as what they do. I mean, they're speaking to the street and they have to sort of say certain things. But we all know that the Saudis probably hate and are threatened even more by the Iranian regime than even Israel is. They're closer in their backyard. So I think all of this, of course, is towards the goal of making the region more stable, more secure, so that economic initiatives can prosper, the Abraham Accords can take off within this environment. And so I think the Saudis are probably quietly watching with support. I think they're participating in taking down some of these Houthi missiles, is what I've seen as well. So more of that I think will be. Well,
that's actually very encouraging, because when Israel did decide to respond to October 7th, and they went on the offensive, Iran had those two missile barrages, early on that did absolutely nothing. And you could have had intervention from other players in the region, and the Saudis decided to sit it out completely. Right. And I thought that was a good sign. And certainly they don't seem to be invested in doing anything in Iran's behalf now. And I think that Israel, Iran, and Saudi is kind of like the U.S., Russia, and China. You don't want Russia and China ganging up, because then the U.S. is really in trouble. You don't want Iran and Saudi to ever get together, because then Israel is in some real trouble. If you can keep those powers apart, then it's better for everybody in the region. And I think that the Saudis just want they seem to me to want a more common experience, a modern experience for their future.
Yeah. I think so. That's a great point, Kevin. And if I could just pick up on that, I think today Iran finds itself for the first time closer to what Russia and China are experiencing, in that both of those countries are in neighborhoods where each of those countries in their backyards have long memories and experiences of Russia, of China invading, of brutal wars. They're isolated. And now Iran is isolated as well. None of its proxies are engaging on its behalf. It has, the Russians can't really do too much about it. They're consumers of Iranian hardware and weapons. They can't. They're tied up in Ukraine. So I think Iran is in for a rude awakening. The leadership there, that they are by themselves in the region.
Big question here: do Iran, Russia, and China form some sort of coalition? Because I think there's been a concern that you kind of had an axis of evil that was forming between Russia and China during the Biden years. North Korea and Iran were always kind of right there with them in terms of philosophy. Yeah. Does this push them closer together?
Well, I think they've been operating together in some form for many years now. I think what this does do, however, it puts that coalition into question. I think the tyrants in Beijing, in Moscow, are looking now at what's happening to the Iranian regime and saying, we don't want to be next. We don't want this to happen to us. We now see what military power can do. And so, which is to the broader point that what we do in one theater affects directly what happens against adversaries in another theater. And so I think it's all going to play out in real time for us. Each of these adversaries responding in different ways and how they pivot.
I don't think it's going to be an easy solution. In fact, I think there's going to be a lot of complicated days ahead of us. But my position and argument is still Israel did the world a favor in decapitating the nuclear program.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
All right, friends, welcome back. Just a couple of things. Did you know that everything we do is online at thatkevinshow.com? And it's through our friends at Salem Media Group. It's been improved and significantly will be doing a lot more than it has been doing. But all of my radio, all of my different areas of interest. You know that I do one broadcast a week that's just focused on entertainment and tourism in New York. I do another one that does travel across the country and around the globe. And then everything else we do is news of the day, kind of top stories of the day and, what we think about it and how it impacts us and so forth. And then, of course, all of our That Kevin Show TV shows are there. And we would love for you to interact with us there. And the reason that I'm pointing you there is because there's also a place where you can subscribe to my new travel publication called That Passport Life. And That Passport Life is custom content about the greatest places to travel to and about and to see. It's loaded with visuals. We think you're really going to love it. And I've got some great contributors that are on the staff that are helping us put it together. It's a really special publication. I'm really proud of it. And there are more than 500,000 people a week that get it and that are enjoying it, and they're telling their friends. It's an incredible thing, and I hope you can join us. So go to thatkevinshow.com and subscribe to the That Passport Life publication. You can also get my Video Insider email, which is a kind of fun one. It gives you just a little snippet of something kind of tasty on video every day, and I hope you'll check that out as well when you go to thatkevinshow.com. All of it's free. I never put anything behind a paywall. None of the podcasts, none of the highlights, none of the newsletters, nothing. You get everything from us at gratis. We just want to get the information in your hands and hope that it will be of help to you. Now, I want to say thank you to those of you that have been joining us on the journey for helping us liberate slaves this year. Because of your faithfulness, we have already, and we just started a few weeks ago, liberated 31 human slaves in Sudan, where we've spoken for them. The liberations kind of happen at kind of key junctures throughout the year, and we can't ever tell you the date ahead of time. We can tell you when we've completed one, but we can't tell you ahead of time because we don't want to jeopardize the negotiations and everything else. But Northern Sudan has 185,000 women and children in captivity at the peak of the Sudan civil war. We've gotten that number down now to roughly 35,000, we think, somewhere in that neighborhood, that still remain in slavery. And Christian Solidarity International, my good partners on this, have been the only people that have been speaking up and doing anything about it. Well, having said that, we are trying to liberate another 208 of those human slaves. We know their names, we know they're at, we know how to go and help them not only be free, but then we will resource them. We will give them a year's worth of food. We will give them a year's worth of seed. We will give them an additional set of utensils to cook and clean and fish with. There's for the women, there are feminine products that we make available. There are things that they need to just get by in life, like tarps and blankets. But then there's also a little she-goat that they get that will help them not only make cheese and milk and stuff like that, but then they can breed and sell the kidlings to other people and have like a little job, a little source of income for their family. So we hope that you will help us accomplish all of that. 888-342-1010 is the number. 888-342-1010. If you call, it costs $250 to help one woman. There are 208 on our list, but now that number's down to 177 because of the 31 that have been spoken for. Over the years, we've liberated almost 5,000 of these women, and now even some of their children have been freed as well. So will you help us? 888-342-1010. Listen to how it impacts their life.
My name is Nanya Newt. I was about 15 years old when I was captured. My mom had spent the last few days teaching me all about what it meant to be a good wife and a mom, showing me how to cook and sew. She had hoped I would get married in the future. One day I was out collecting firewood, and that was when the Arabs found me and captured me and took me to Sudan without the chance to tell my family goodbye. It took me many days to walk the complete journey. They gave us boiled sorghum as we went, and the men that had been captured with us faced grave dangers. They were considered to be spies, and most of them were killed right in front of us. Upon arrival in the north, I was sold to a master in Miriam village, and then I was sold almost as quickly to another Arab in McCullough. He made me work for his family, sweeping the compound and washing the dishes. They worked me long and terrible hours, pounding sorghum, fetching water. And then they said in order to be a good Muslim woman, I would need to be circumcised. I was held down as it happened, and then I was forced to marry. Against my will, they forced me to work even when I was sick. And if I did anything that made them angry, they would beat me. My master never bought me any clothes, never paid me for any of my work, and barely ever fed me. Then one day, I heard about a CSI retriever, and I ran to find him in the town. As it turned out, they were freeing slaves in my region, and they had not known about me. But I think God allowed me to find them because they brought me home. We walked that same journey back to South Sudan. And today I thank God because I am free. I thank the Arab retriever because he helped. I thank CSI and for those who gave. I cannot thank those of you who gave money to help us become free ever enough in all of my life. But I do hope that my prayer is answered, that we will not stop until they are all free.
Friends, you've helped us free 31 so far, but there are another 177 women that are in captivity, with some with children, that we could liberate right now. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, or just go to bringherhome.org, bringherhome.org. And again, the McCullough family matching every slave that you free this weekend.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Kevin News Newsom, thanks for coming on my show. I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. So I understand you have a plan to deal with the mostly peaceful protests in Los Angeles. That's right, Stephen. And not just the protests. I intend on making California better overall. I'm using the default action taken by the Democratic Party, which is whatever happens, just blame Trump for it. So my basic one-step plan is to make it seem like all the problems I have are Trump's fault, including this. Oh my God, I can't believe Donald Trump would slap me across the face like that. Wow, I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. That's a great plan, Gavin. I think I'll blame Trump for everything as well. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Donald Trump just slapped me too. My God, he's completely out of control. Not only is he responsible for California's unaffordable housing, inflated cost of living, unfair tax policies, poor education, drug crisis, high crime rates, the unfinished high-speed rail, all the poop in San Francisco, and the highest population of homeless in the United States, but now he's slapping us in the face. Oh my God, he just did it again! The man is completely unhinged! I wouldn't be surprised if he was responsible for all this illegal immigration as well. My God, I sold out years ago and I'm a coward! Oh my God, he's relentless! Excuse me, Stephen. Hello? Donald Trump just slapped me in the face. Oh my God. He just slapped me again too! Just now! Why is he doing this? If I were to guess, it's because he wants to make it seem like we're responsible for all the problems we've caused. If he succeeds, it will be almost impossible for us to avoid accountability. Damn it, he just slapped me again! My God, I guess we'll have to blame Trump for more than we've ever blamed him for before. Dear God, he just slapped me really hard this time!
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from his Houthis.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, more analysis on the Iran-Israel war with Captain Meaghan Mobbs, PhD. Illegals are suing Texas for schooling. Emily Sturge joins us. More sketch comedy on the way, and back in the spotlight, it's Brandon Lake and Cece Winans. And now, from Times Square, where the tourists gawk, the elite scoff, and the truth wears cowboy boots just to kick the nonsense harder, here's the Kevin!
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. Let's begin this weekend's whirlwind of well-intentioned lunacy with a little radioactive reassurance. The United Nations nuclear watchdog says Iran has enough uranium to build several nuclear bombs, but don't worry, they pinky promise not to. That's right, the regime that chants death to America every Friday has no plans at all to weaponize the enriched uranium they've spent years enriching. Because when you think trustworthy, we all think Iran. I mean, what's next? Taliban Air getting FAA certification? But while the Ayatollahs spin centrifuges, Trump spins strategy. And once again, the media misses the plot. According to experts, Trump's chaotic Middle East moves were actually the geopolitical version of a Rubik's Cube. Confusing to the dumb, but in the hands of someone who's not blinking through Botox at a press conference. Apparently, pulling out of the Iran deal, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, and striking peace deals with Arab nations wasn't impulsive at all. It was genius. Now, someone tell CNN this before they pull a hamstring twisting into another narrative pretzel. Meanwhile, back in the People's Republic of California, a federal court just told Gavin Newsom he doesn't get to keep the National Guard like it's his personal Uber Eats security team. Trump wins back control of the Guard, and now Newsom will have to find a new group to mobilize in case another church dares to host a potluck. Don't worry, Gavin. I hear Portland's Antifa militia is between gigs. And speaking of Antifa's greatest hits, they're back in L.A. Yay. Protesting ICE because apparently nothing says social justice like lighting a trash can on fire while wearing $200 Nikes. J.D. Vance isn't having any of it. He flew to L.A. to meet with the Marines and the federal agents amid growing chaos. Because when your mayor is too busy to virtue signal to run the city, sometimes a guy from Ohio has to show up to show him how to do America. Also in LA, federal agents thwarted a man's attempt to blow up officers during these mostly peaceful protests. See, who says defunding the police didn't work? Now even the bombers feel brave enough to clock in. And in a chef's kiss of irony, a Democratic mayor who recently insisted that her city was getting safer was nearly kidnapped. Apparently, the criminals hadn't read her press release, but let's be fair, nothing says progressive paradise like the mayor needing a panic button right after bragging about how great things are. Across the country in New England, the wreck of Captain Cook's legendary ship has been finally confirmed, conveniently docked under a quaint resort. But nothing says historic preservation like letting toddlers with pool noodles frolic over the remains of an 18th century vessel. I'm sure the ghosts of the Royal Navy truly appreciate the tiki bar. Meanwhile, on a more expensive front, billionaire and Bond villain auditionee Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram, has announced plans to divide his wealth among the more than 100 children he has. Not a typo, 100. Apparently, Pavel's been spreading his crypto and his chromosomes about in equal measure. When reached for a comment, Nick Cannon just said, amateur. In lifestyle news, Martha Stewart has sparked a war, not in Ukraine, but in your kitchen, by declaring her undying loyalty to ketchup on hot dogs. This controversy is splitting Americans harder than the Civil War. Chicago is sending cease and desist letters. New York declared it a condiment crime. And Kansas just muttered, as long as it's not kale, we're good. Finally, Meghan Markle. Yes, the Duchess of Discontent is back. This time, launching a new product line driven, experts say, by her, quote, desire for fame and fortune. Stunning insight. I mean, who knew a D-list actress turned royal turned podcast casualty might still want attention? I haven't seen a more desperate attempt to stay relevant since MySpace added live streaming. For a Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Hi, my name is Chuck, and I'm a Nazi. Actually, I'm a real card-carrying Nazi. Literally. Here's my card. I've been a Nazi as long as I can remember. I believe all the standard Nazi stuff. I hate minorities and undesirables. I think Aryans should rule the world. The Third Reich shall rise again. All the classics. But it's not as fun to be a Nazi anymore. When they started calling Elon Musk a Nazi and Trump and, pretty much every Republican, it made it a lot harder for me to stand out. It's like I go out in public and I'm like, hey everyone, I'm a Nazi. And they're like, big deal. Everyone we don't like is a Nazi. It makes me feel less special. The swastika armband, it used to mean something. Now I'm walking down the street and every Tesla has a swastika painted on it. Every Republican's garage door has one. I just can't stand out from the crowd. Nowadays, anyone who owns a Tesla is a Nazi. Anyone who voted for Trump is a Nazi. Anyone who believes in enforcing our nation's laws is a Nazi. Anyone who doesn't want to sterilize and mutilate people in bizarre medical experiments is a Nazi. Which is a real head scratcher because, honestly, we've been huge supporters of that. Mengele was a real pioneer. I'm just feeling discouraged. I used to be unique, special, different. There weren't many of us. It took real effort and commitment to be a Nazi. Now all you have to do is simply imply online that you don't think students should be stabbed at football games or track meets and bam, instant Nazi. I used to be able to Sieg Heil in a crowded room and really cause a scene. But now, anyone who's doing the wave at a baseball game or sending their heart out to you in a speech is apparently a Nazi. I guess I just want to go back to the old days when being a Nazi meant something. Because if we change the definition of Nazi to include any old Joe walking down the street, it loses its power. Because when everyone's a Nazi, no one is. Elon Musk is not a Nazi. Jordan Peterson isn't a Nazi. Ben Shapiro, well, now he might be a Nazi.
But he's a Jew.
He is? Oh, I just assumed he had a bald spot he was trying to cover him on the back of his head. Okay, Ben Shapiro is not a Nazi.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. ThatKevinShow.com actually has everything. It's got all the social. It's got my columns. It's got the TV stuff. It's got the podcasts. You want it, it's there. ThatKevinShow.com. You can even subscribe to the new newsletter there as well. So check all that out as you go. Obviously, the big story this week is Iran. And as we have already covered from some perspective on this show, I want to dig a little bit deeper. And that's why I'm excited to have Captain Dr. Meaghan Mobbs back with us from Independent Women's Forum. She was a captain in the U.S. Army. She has a PhD in psychology. Is it psychology?
That's correct, in psychology.
That's it.
So be careful, Kevin. I may analyze you.
No, look, I need it. So I'm just going to take it for free. Obviously, this is a lot to cover, but there's so much here that's going on. And as the days drag on, Meaghan, as you're watching the events unfold, what are you primarily concerned about? What draws your attention most?
So I will be honest, I am not concerned the way some are right now. And the reason why I'm not concerned is because I genuinely believe that conflict is a spectrum. The president has been very clear that we cannot have a nuclear Iran. Therefore, they have to be non-nuclear. But he's not talking about some type of boots on the ground, protracted engagement. He's talking about a precise, targeted military strike in the nation's best interest. And so I think that we really need to focus on that. We cannot have a nuclear Iran for a variety of reasons, and the president has been very clear.
I've worried about all of this for much longer than just since Israel launched the first attack a few nights ago. From a couple of standpoints, when we were involved, when we were last in the Middle East, we grew a lot of fatigue around Iraq and what happened there and kind of the shadiness of the quality of the information. I actually still think to this day that General Powell and others acted in good conscience. I think that they thought that what was there was there. Why it wasn't necessarily when we went in, I don't know. But I don't think that that's the case in this scenario, and I don't think that the American people think that. And I'm noticing that there's 78% of the American people, as of our conversation this moment, that are saying they actually are very worried that Iran has a nuclear weapon. And if that is in fact the case, as I argued last Sunday in townhall.com, we owe Israel a huge debt of thanks because they have really borne the brunt of what is going to end up being a global civilization-saving series of events.
Kevin, you're exactly right on everything that you just said. The vast majority of the American people support this limited, targeted military action to ensure Iran does not go nuclear. Additionally, it is looking increasingly clear like there is intelligence that, and by the way, General Carrillo from the Pentagon testified recently about the fact that Iran was very close to weapon grades enrichment, meaning that this is a clear and present danger. Israel, to your point, has taken the brunt of this. They've helped take out 50% of the ballistic capability in Iran, and not to mention all of the leadership capable of making decisions around launch sites in Iran. And And so really this is a once in a generation and a lifetime opportunity for the United States to do what is necessary to help bring peace and stability to the region. I think many people have a bit of a hangover from what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm very much where you are, Kevin. I do think people acted in genuine good faith. That doesn't mean that bad decisions were not made. However, we have to put that aside and really look at what's happening right here, right now with what information we have.
Well, and if I was the Ayatollahs, I'm kind of confused by their missing the signals here, because when in Trump 1.0, he's having dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Xi Jinping, and he gets word that Syria had crossed the line and launched chemical grade weapons against their own people. And he went and launched a series of missiles and took them out. And that was the end of it before dessert. Like, he excused himself. Excuse me, Xi, I'll be right back. Comes back. It's all taken care of, which I think had to send a very clear message to China at the time that, I'm not one to be messed with. But I do think that Trump will try to exhaust every other means of solving this before military action is taken.
I think you're exactly right again, Kevin. I think the president has shown himself to be this kind of pioneer around peace through strength doctrine. I think he always wants to give diplomacy and opportunity, and that means engaging with everyone, whether it's Putin, whether it's the Ayatollahs. He wants to give them the opportunity to make the right decision. And when they don't, he's going to do everything necessary to make sure that he achieves what's in America's best interest. And again, that is clearly having a non-nuclear Iran as supported by the American people.
What do we know about the 30,000 bunker buster? I know that we may be the only force on the planet that has it. It may be the only bomb that can get down deep enough to destroy the nuclear facility. Can we launch that from a stealth bomber that's way, way up there that Iran would never see coming? Or does it have to be delivered via payload of like a normal bombing run?
So the only aircraft capable of carrying the munition that you just mentioned is our B-2 bomber. We are the only country in the entire world, go America, that has both the munitions capability, the massive ordnance penetration necessary, and the platform to carry it. And in this case, that platform is the B-2 bomber. But to your point earlier about airspace, the president said on Truth a couple of days ago that he used the word we, control the airspace over Iran. This is in partnership with Israel. So this is not a no-risk mission, but it is a relatively low-risk mission in the sense that the airspace over Iran seems to be mostly under control. The risk is, once this occurs, what happens on the ground. Again, I don't think the president is talking about regime change. I don't think the president is talking about a protracted war. I think he is, again, talking specifically about targeting Fordow, that deep nuclear site that needs to be penetrated.
If the Iranian people decide to do regime change and we're not there, we have nothing to do with it. That's up to them. But I do think that Trump and Netanyahu have given them all the tools to be able to do that. I mean, when you cut off pallets of Obama and Biden cash, and then you cut off oil production to the global markets, you've basically bankrupted what the Ayatollahs were using as kind of their crack supplier to keep everything going. And if they don't have a nuclear bomb to be able to bully all of their neighbors with, then they're not necessarily in control anymore. Do you sense that particularly the young Iranian population is ready for a new country?
Absolutely. And we really have seen so much domestic destabilization in Iran for a long period of time, but it really reached a fever pitch under the Biden administration after Masha Amini was killed by the morality police. You saw all these uprisings in the streets, and the Iranian people were actually looking to the West, just saying, we don't want you here, but kind of give us the wink and nod that you won't interfere if we decide to uprise and overthrow our own government. Unfortunately, under the previous administration, as with all things, they were feckless, dithering, weak, and so that there was never the opportunity or a possibility of that happening. Israel and the United States are creating the opportunity for a revolution, kind of metaphorically, in the sense that they could remake the Middle East in a way that is more democratic, more free, and more prosperous. And this also, the foundation for all of this was established in the first Trump administration with the Abraham Accords. As you're seeing, most of the Middle East is being relatively quiet on condemning Israel and what they're doing because it is also in their best interest.
All the Arab countries side with Saudi, and Saudi is not sad at all if Iran.
Exactly.
Right. Captain Dr. Meaghan Mobbs, we've learned a lot from you. Thanks for coming by. We appreciate it.
From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
All right, friends, I want to say thank you to those of you who have started us off on the road this year to helping on our annual cause. We love doing this because it changes lives in such a huge way. And just a few weeks ago, I told you that there are 208 human slaves that we know the names of, we know where they are being held captive, we know how to negotiate their freedom, and we are bringing them home in the year 2025. And I want to say thank you because as of right now, we have seen 31 of those captives be liberated, be spoken for, be taken care of. And it's not just the liberation. There's a lot more work to it than that, because once you get them liberated, then you need to be able to provide them what is necessary for them to start their life over again. So you need to provide food, you need to provide some shelter from weather, you need to provide utensils that they can cook and clean and fish and do all that stuff with. And then there's a kind of a fun part of what your gift gives them, which is they get a female goat, a little female goat, and then they can use that, and it makes milk and cheese, and it has little tiny kidlets, and they are able to then create a life for themselves as a result. Friends, your gift today will help us continue to work towards that goal of getting all 208 human slaves liberated this year. So I've asked you in the past to be generous. Friends, this morning, today, this weekend, I'm asking you to be extra generous, and here's why. The McCullough family has decided that we are going to use more of our personal resources this year to challenge you, to encourage you to step forward and to say, I want to be part of this. So this weekend, we are going to match every slave that is liberated. And if you are actually thinking about doing it, you've been saying, Kevin, I've been thinking about it, this is the weekend I want you to take care of that. I want you to do that, because we are going to step up and say, yeah, we're going to match that slave for slave. So here's what I want you to do. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. You can call and talk to someone, or you can just go online and give at bringherhome.org. Bringherhome.org will allow you to do that. Bringherhome.org or 888-342-1010. And nothing explains the story of how this all works better than hearing about one of the women personally. Take a listen.
My name is Nanya Newt. I was about 15 years old when I was captured. My mom had spent the last few days teaching me all about what it meant to be a good wife and a mom, showing me how to cook and sew. She had hoped I would get married in the future. One day I was out collecting firewood, and that was when the Arabs found me and captured me and took me to Sudan without the chance to tell my family goodbye. It took me many days to walk the complete journey. They gave us boiled sorghum as we went, and the men that had been captured with us faced grave dangers. They were considered to be spies, and most of them were killed right in front of us. Upon arrival in the north, I was sold to a master in Miriam village, and then I was sold almost as quickly to another Arab in McCullough Gate. He made me work for his family, sweeping the compound and washing the dishes. They worked me long and terrible hours, pounding sorghum, fetching water. And then they said in order to be a good Muslim woman, I would need to be circumcised. I was held down as it happened, and then I was forced to marry. Against my will, they forced me to work even when I was sick. And if I did anything that made them angry, they would beat me. My master never bought me any clothes, never paid me for any of my work, and barely ever fed me. Then one day, I heard about a CSI retriever, and I ran to find them in the town. As it turned out, they were freeing slaves in my region, and they had not known about me. But I think God allowed me to find them because they brought me home. We walked that same journey back to South Sudan. And today I thank God because I am free. I thank the Arab retriever because he helped. I thank CSI and for those who gave. I cannot thank those of you who gave money to help us become free ever enough in all of my life. But I do hope that my prayer is answered, that we will not stop until they are all free.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything, including the social, the email, the newsletter, the podcasts. It's all there. Thatkevinshow.com. Just go there and get it. Appreciate you being with us. In light of all of the big headline news that's going on in the world, there are some things tracking here domestically that we want to keep our eye on. And one of them has to do with what's going on in the education arena, particularly as it relates to some of the more politically correct DEI and other initiatives that are being carried out on college campuses. And Emily Sturge is back with us from Campus Reform to talk about this. Emily, it's good to see you.
Great to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
What is happening? We've got a couple of kind of high profile things going down.
We do. We absolutely have lots of stories happening on America's college campuses, and that's what we're doing. We are reporting at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform everything from anti-Semitism to women's sports to illegal immigration, all of these things happening on America's college campuses.
I'm hearing that actual illegal alien students in the state of Texas are actually suing in an American court to get in-state tuition reinstated after it was revoked. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV. I don't understand how people who aren't even citizens have standing. But what is happening in this case?
Well, what's happening here is Trump's Department of Justice sued the state of Texas for allowing illegal immigrants to have in-state tuition for the past 24 years. And they were able to successfully overturn this law. And now we're seeing a group of illegal immigrant students actually fight back and oppose the ruling, saying that they deserve to have that in-state tuition. So we have a group of illegal alien students here who are outright rejecting American rule of law, rejecting federal law, rejecting the American Constitution, and standing up to the Trump administration. And as Americans face migrant crime, human trafficking, and fentanyl deaths as a result of the previous administration's open border policies, I think the last thing Americans should be doing is footing the bill for subsidized education for illegal alien students.
Well, it is very interesting to understand that these guys have had this perk for a while. So I guess there's going to be some expectation that if they were grandfathered in or something, maybe the ones that are in the system already should have it or whatever. I don't understand a lot of the arguments about equity because I didn't get any equity breaks when I was growing up. There was no special, because you were standing in line, we're going to give you this discount. I grew up as a poor kid in Texas. had to work my way through college, did what I had to do to, try to carve out the life that I wanted to live. These kids seem to have it differently. Where does it? So it's at a state judge's level now of review. What's where does it go from here?
Well, these students are gaining traction. These students are getting funding from a Mexican-American legal defense fund, and they're certainly trying their hardest to take this case even further. And what's the issue here is that these in-state tuition benefits, what it's doing is it's incentivizing further illegal immigration. It's furthering this.
Oh, it's a magnet.
Of course, it's a magnet. And I'm actually not surprised by this story at all, because we've reported so many instances of the special perks and treatment that America's universities hand over to illegal alien students. Just this past graduation season, we reported that 4 universities were holding separate graduation ceremonies to honor illegal immigrant students. We've also seen scholarships and other resources. My alma mater, the University of Florida, advertised scholarships for undocumented students. And then other universities are providing free legal services to undocumented students. We've seen that over in the California State University system. So when there are so many incentives, so many perks, so much special treatment going on in America's universities, the in-state tuition thing doesn't shock me at all. But I am very excited to see an administration that is standing up for American rule of law and standing up for American students and saying that this is outright unfair.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to think that there's a certain amount of, obviously all the taxpayers are footing the bill for a lot of this, because if it's going on in state schools, there's a lot of federal and state funding that's going into that. But at the same time, they're taking seats that could be and probably should be being given to American students. And so we're losing twice on this issue in a fairly significant way. Campus Reform doing a great job of keeping their eye on all of this. Let me shift gears a little bit. Let's go to the Carolinas. We've seen, particularly at Harvard and Columbia here in the Northeast, a lot of anti-Semitism and DEI kind of being, and they kind of merge into like one protest at times, at least on the Columbia campus. But what's going on in the North Carolina systems?
It's one big left-wing bureaucracy. Recently, in the North Carolina university system, we've seen released footage of 3 different administrators at 3 different universities, undercover footage, revealing that these administrators are talking about continuing to push and embed DEI throughout the university systems and circumventing state and federal law in order to continue pushing that DEI and still receiving taxpayer resources. So what we thought was happening with this great DEI rebrand, what we suspected was happening, now we have confirmation, and we're seeing a very stealthy rebrand on America's college campuses, renaming, reshaping, repositioning DEI in order to cloak that left-wing mission. We've seen changes in course titles, in position titles, even in DEI office names. They're using more neutral language. For example, at Harvard University, their DEI office shifted to a more neutral name, something like the Office of Community Life or Office of Campus Engagement. That's what universities are renaming their offices to, and we've seen nearly 90 universities rename their offices in order to cloak their DEI mission, but continue to push this left-wing agenda.
Is it, well, and people need to be aware of this, because, friends, if you send your kids to these schools, this is what you're getting. This is what you're paying for. And if you don't like it, don't send kids to these schools. And certainly, if you're alumni, don't give money to them. This is how they continue to be able to perpetrate this. There's not much more legally that the administration can do on this, is there, Emily, in terms of you can't like if the school's saying, well, we're not enforcing anything, in terms of admittance or anything like that, then there's no way to hold this in check. Keep up the good work. Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. Don't go away.
Ready or not, we'll be right